For 12 years, I sent $500 to my son for his disabled daughter. One day, I visited, and his neighbor said, "That one sentence from a stranger on a porch changed everything I thought I knew about my own family." For 12 long years, I had been sending $500 every single month to help care for a granddaughter who, as it turned out, never needed my help at all. What that neighbor told me on that quiet Tuesday afternoon made my knees buckle and my vision blur. But what my son didn't know was that I had already started keeping records, and those records would become the foundation of the fight of my life. Good day, dear listeners. It's Isabella again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. Today's story comes from a woman whose love for her family was exploited in one of the cruelest ways I've ever heard. But she found the strength to fight back, and what happened next will stay with you for a long time. My name is Margaret Ann Whitfield. I am 73 years old, and I live in a modest 2-bedroom house on Elm Terrace in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's the same house my late husband, Harold David Whitfield, and I bought in 1984 when we were young and full of dreams. Harold was an electrician for the city for 31 years. He was the kind of man who came home with scraped knuckles and sawdust in his hair and still found time to plant roses along the front walkway every spring. We were married for 44 years before pancreatic cancer took him from me in 2019. Those last 3 months were the hardest of my life. I held his hand in the hospice room every single day, and when he passed on a Sunday morning in October, I felt a part of myself leave with him. Harold and I raised 2 children. Our daughter, Christine Louise, lives in Asheville, North Carolina, with her husband and 2 teenage boys. She calls me every Sunday without fail. She is my steady rock, my reminder that I did something right. Then there is my son, Derek Allen Whitfield. He is 47 years old now, and for most of his adult life, I believed he was a good man. He moved to Orlando, Florida in 2009 with his wife, Vanessa Marie Whitfield, and their daughter, Lily Grace Whitfield. Derek told me he was working as a sales manager at a furniture company. Vanessa stayed home, and Lily, my youngest grandchild, was the one who would eventually become the center of a lie so enormous it nearly consumed me. On Harold's old wooden desk in the spare room, I still keep a framed photo of Derek holding Lily as a baby. He's smiling in that picture, genuinely smiling. Sometimes I wonder when exactly that smile turned into something else. When did my son look at me and stop seeing his mother and start seeing nothing more than a monthly check? It started in January of 2012. Derek called me on a Wednesday evening. I remember because I had just finished watching my cooking show and was about to make myself a cup of chamomile tea. The phone rang at 7:14 p.m. I can still hear his voice, tight and strained, the way it gets when he's trying to hold something in. "Mom, I need to tell you something about Lily." My heart dropped. Lily was only 5 years old at the time. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter and said, "What is it? What's wrong?" He told me that Lily had been diagnosed with a rare neurological condition that affected her motor skills and cognitive development. He said the doctors called it a progressive neuromuscular disorder. He said she would need ongoing therapy, specialized equipment, occupational sessions, speech therapy, and possibly surgeries as she got older. He said the insurance only covered part of it. He said they were drowning. "Mom, I hate to even ask this, but could you help us? Even a little bit every month would make a difference. Vanessa's been crying every night. We don't know what else to do." What else would a mother do? I didn't hesitate, not for 1 second. I told him I would send $500 a month. Harold's pension and my Social Security gave me about $2,700 a month after bills. $500 was not a small amount. It was nearly 20% of my income. But this was my granddaughter. This was Lily. I would have sold the house if he had asked me to. The first transfer went out on February 1st, 2012. $500, sent directly to Derek's checking account. He thanked me profusely. He sent me a photo of Lily in what he said was a therapy room, wearing little pink sneakers, holding onto a set of parallel bars. My heart ached looking at that picture. Over the next few months, Derek called regularly. He gave me updates. He said Lily was making slow progress, but that the therapy was expensive. He said that out-of-pocket costs were running about $1,400 a month, and Vanessa's parents were helping too, but it still wasn't enough. In June 2012, he asked for an additional $2,000 for a special leg brace Lily needed. I sent it. In September, he asked for $1,500 for a new round of cognitive testing. I sent that too. In December, he said Lily's therapist recommended a specialized camp for children with motor disabilities, costing $3,500 for 2 weeks. I pulled money from my small savings account and wired it without question. By the end of 2012 alone, I had sent Derek a total of $11,000 beyond the regular monthly payments. But I didn't keep careful track back then. I trusted him. He was my son. The years went on. Every month, $500 left my account like clockwork. Every few months, there was an extra request. Sometimes it was $1,000. Sometimes $2,500. Once, in March of 2015, it was $5,000 for what Derek described as an emergency surgery consultation at a children's hospital in Atlanta. He said they needed to travel, stay in a hotel, pay the specialist out of pocket because the doctor wasn't in network. I scraped together every cent I had and sent it. I canceled a dental appointment I'd been waiting 4 months for because I couldn't afford the copay after that transfer. I stopped buying fresh fruit and started buying canned. I wore the same winter coat for 9 years because replacing it felt selfish when my granddaughter needed help. In August 2016, Derek asked for $3,000 for a wheelchair-accessible vehicle modification. He said Lily's condition had worsened and she could no longer walk long distances. I cried that night. I cried for Lily, for Derek, for the unfairness of it all. Then I went to the bank the next morning and sent the money. In 2017, I wanted to visit. I told Derek I would fly to Orlando in October to see Lily, to hold her, to be there for her birthday. He told me it wasn't a good time. He said Lily was having a difficult period and that new people overwhelmed her. He said the doctors recommended limiting her social interactions. Even me? I asked. I'm her grandmother. Especially unfamiliar faces, Mom. She doesn't really remember you. It would confuse her. Maybe next year. That stung. It stung deeply. But I swallowed it. I told myself he knew best. He was her father. He was there every day. Who was I to question the doctors? In 2018, I tried again. Same answer. Different excuse. This time, Vanessa was supposedly going through a difficult time herself and couldn't handle visitors. In 2019, Harold died, and I was too consumed by grief to push the issue. In 2020, the pandemic made travel impossible. In 2021, Derek said Lily had been hospitalized for 3 weeks, and the household was in chaos. Every single year, there was a reason I couldn't visit. And every single month, the $500 went out, plus the extras. Always the extras. Let me tell you what I sacrificed during those 12 years. I did not take a single vacation. I did not replace my leaking kitchen faucet for 2 years because I couldn't afford the plumber. I ate rice and beans 3 nights a week. I declined invitations to my church group's annual retreat because I couldn't afford the $75 registration fee. I stopped getting my hair done at the salon and started cutting it myself in the bathroom mirror. I told my daughter Christine that I was fine, that I was comfortable, that I didn't need anything. I lied to protect my pride and to protect Derek's secret. In total, from February 2012 through January 2024, I sent Derek $72,000 in regular monthly payments. On top of that, I sent an additional $55,400 in special requests over those 12 years. The grand total was $127,400. That number still makes me dizzy when I say it out loud. $127,400 from a widow living on a pension and Social Security. The moment everything changed was Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. I had finally decided that I was going to visit whether Derek liked it or not. I was 73 years old. My health wasn't getting better. I had a small cough that wouldn't go away, and my doctor had mentioned something about my blood pressure that worried me. I wanted to see my granddaughter before it was too late. I wanted to hold her hand, look into her eyes, and tell her that her grandmother loved her and had been fighting for her every single day. I didn't tell Derek I was coming. For the first time in 12 years, I didn't ask permission. I booked a round-trip flight from Knoxville to Orlando for $214. I packed a small suitcase with a gift for Lily, a handmade quilt I'd spent 3 months sewing, with lavender fabric and little embroidered butterflies. I landed at Orlando International Airport at 11:40 a.m. and took a rideshare to the address Derek had given me years ago, a house on Palmetto Drive in a suburb called Meadow Lakes. When the car pulled up, I noticed the house was nicer than I expected. Much nicer. It was a large 2-story home with a 3-car garage, a manicured lawn, and a swimming pool visible through the side fence. There were 2 newer model cars in the driveway, a white SUV and a black sedan. Potted palms flanked the front door. The house looked like it belonged to someone doing very, very well. I stood on the sidewalk with my suitcase and the quilt in a bag over my shoulder, and I felt the first prick of something unfamiliar. Not suspicion, exactly. More like confusion. Where was the struggle? Where was the weight of 12 years of medical bills and therapy sessions and emergency surgeries? I walked up the front path, but before I reached the door, a woman on the porch next door called out to me, "You looking for the Whitfields?" I turned. She was maybe 60, with short gray hair and reading glasses pushed up on her head. She had a glass of iced tea in her hand and a small dog at her feet. "Yes," I said. "I'm Derek's mother, Margaret." Her eyebrows went up. She set the glass down and walked to the edge of her porch. "Well, they're not home right now. Derek and Vanessa took the kids to Disney World for the weekend. They go every couple of months. And Lily's at her gymnastics competition in Tampa." I blinked. "Gymnastics?" "Oh, yes. She's incredible. Level 7, I think. That girl can flip and tumble like nobody's business. She won a regional medal last month. You must be so proud." Something cold settled in my chest. Not sadness. Not yet. Something sharper. Clearer. "Her gymnastics," I repeated slowly. "She's healthy?" The neighbor looked at me strangely. "Healthy? She's one of the most athletic kids I've ever seen. Runs circles around the other children on the block. Why do you ask?" My legs went weak. I reached for the porch railing of Derek's house to steady myself. The quilt bag slipped off my shoulder and landed on the concrete. I didn't pick it up. I couldn't, because in that moment, standing in the Orlando sun with sweat on my forehead and a stranger staring at me with concern, I understood everything. Every phone call, every excuse, every dollar, every single lie. My granddaughter was not disabled. She had never been disabled. There was no neurological condition, no therapy sessions, no leg braces, no emergency surgeries, no wheelchair modifications. None of it was real. Derek had invented a sick child to steal from his own mother. I don't remember exactly how I got back to the airport. I think I sat on Derek's porch step for 20 minutes before I called another rideshare. The neighbor, whose name I later learned was Patricia Holloway, brought me a glass of water and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. I was not fine. On the flight home, I didn't cry. I stared out the window at the clouds and felt something harden inside me. Not bitterness, resolve. By the time the plane touched down in Knoxville at 6:53 p.m., I had made a decision. I was not going to confront Derek with tears and trembling hands. I was going to build a case. I was going to document every single dollar, and I was going to get my money back. The next morning, Wednesday, April 10th, I sat down at Harold's old desk and opened every bank statement I had saved. I am old-fashioned. I keep paper records. Harold taught me that. Every wire transfer, every check, every electronic payment was documented. I pulled out file folders and labeled them by year. February 2012 to January 2024. 12 years. 144 monthly payments of $500, plus 37 additional transfers ranging from $750 to $5,000. I spread all the receipts across my dining table. The paper covered the entire surface, spilling onto the chairs. I added up every number with a calculator, checking twice, then 3 times. The number stared back at me, unchanging and cruel. $127,400. On Thursday, April 11th, I called my daughter Christine. I told her everything. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Christine said something I will never forget. "Mom, I always wondered how Derek could afford that house." Christine told me she had seen photos on Vanessa's Facebook page over the years. Vacations to the Bahamas. A new kitchen renovation in 2021. Lily in a cheerleading uniform in 2019. Lily at a trampoline park in 2020. Lily running a 5K race with her school in 2022. Christine said she had assumed I knew about Lily being healthy and that the money I was sending was just general family help. She didn't realize Derek had told me Lily was disabled. He told me she couldn't walk Christine. He told me she was in a wheelchair. Christine started crying. I did not. On Friday, April 12th, I called an attorney. Her name was Barbara Ann Hendricks of Hendricks and Callaway Law Firm on Market Street in Knoxville. Barbara was 58 years old, sharp as a tack, with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses she wore on a chain around her neck. She had a reputation for handling elder financial abuse cases, and the moment I walked into her office with my box of bank statements, she looked at the stack and said, "Tell me everything." I talked for 2 hours. Barbara took notes without interrupting. When I finished, she set her pen down and said, "Margaret, what your son did to you has a legal name. It's called fraud. Specifically, it's obtaining money by false pretenses. In the state of Tennessee, this is a felony when the amount exceeds $60,000. And given your age and the nature of the deception, it also qualifies as elder financial exploitation under Tennessee Code Annotated Section 71-6-117. She told me we could pursue both civil and criminal remedies. She told me not to contact Derek. She told me to preserve every piece of evidence. She asked me to write a detailed timeline from memory, including every phone call, every text message, every excuse Derek had given for why I couldn't visit. I went home and spent the entire weekend writing. I filled 22 pages of the yellow legal pad in my careful handwriting. Every date I could remember, every amount, every lie. Barbara also retained a private investigator named Thomas Reeves to conduct a background check on Derek and Vanessa's finances. Within 10 days, Thomas Reeves delivered a report that made my stomach turn. Derek and Vanessa Whitfield owned their home in Meadow Lakes outright, purchased in 2014 for $340,000. They had a vacation condo in Destin, Florida, purchased in 2019 for $189,000. Derek drove a 2022 BMW, and Vanessa drove a 2023 Lexus SUV. Their combined income was approximately $185,000 per year. Lily had never been registered with any disability services in the state of Florida. She had never received occupational therapy, speech therapy, or any form of specialized medical treatment. She was enrolled in a private school that cost $12,000 a year in tuition. She had been a competitive gymnast since age 8. There was no disability. There had never been a disability. My son had fabricated his daughter's suffering and used it to drain me of nearly every spare dollar I had for over a decade. Barbara filed a civil lawsuit on April 29, 2024, in Knox County Circuit Court. The complaint named Derek Allen Whitfield and Vanessa Marie Whitfield as defendants in alleged fraud, unjust enrichment, conversion of funds, and elder financial exploitation. Barbara also filed a criminal complaint with the Knox County District Attorney's Office, which assigned the case to Assistant District Attorney Raymond Castellano. I did not tell Derek about any of this. He found out when he was served with papers at his home in Orlando on May 8, 2024, at 3:15 p.m. Patricia Holloway, the neighbor, later told me she saw the process server walk up to the door and Derek's face go white when he opened the envelope. Derek called me that evening at 7:22 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. His message was frantic. "Mom, what is this? Why are you suing me? This is insane. You need to call me back right now. This is a family matter, not a legal matter. You're making a huge mistake." He called again at 7:45 p.m. I didn't answer. He texted me at 8:03 p.m. "Mom, I can explain everything. Please just call me. We can work this out without lawyers." At 8:17 p.m., another text. "You're going to tear this family apart? Is that what you want?" At 9:31 p.m., "Fine. If you want to play it this way, we will. But don't come crying to me when you're alone and nobody wants anything to do with you." I saved every single message. I printed them. I gave copies to Barbara. 3 days later, Vanessa called me. Her voice was syrupy, dripping with false concern. "Margaret, honey, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Derek was always going to pay you back. We just got behind. Life got complicated. You know how it is. We love you so much. Lily asks about you all the time." "Does she?" I said. "Because Derek told me she doesn't remember me." Silence. "He said she couldn't handle visitors. He said she was in a wheelchair, Vanessa. He said she had a neurological condition." More silence. Then Vanessa hung up. Over the next several weeks, Derek launched a campaign to turn the family against me. He called his cousin, Robert, in Nashville, and told him I was mentally unstable, that I was confused and paranoid, that my grief over Harold had made me irrational. He called Harold's sister, my sister-in-law Donna, and told her I had been giving money away voluntarily and was now regretting it due to dementia. He even called Christine's husband, Mark, and tried to convince him that I needed to be placed under a conservatorship. Mark told him to go to hell and hung up. Christine called me in tears after hearing from Mark. "Mom, he's trying to say you have dementia. He wants to have you declared incompetent." "Let him try," I said. "My doctor will tell any court that my mind is perfectly sharp." And he did. Dr. James Thurman, my physician of 16 years, provided a written medical evaluation confirming that I was cognitively sound, mentally competent, and showed no signs of dementia or cognitive decline. Barbara filed that evaluation with the court preemptively. Derek hired an attorney in Orlando named Craig Weber. From what Barbara told me, Weber tried to argue that the payments were voluntary gifts from a loving mother and that Derek had no legal obligation to return them. He filed a motion to dismiss the case, claiming there was no evidence of fraud because Derek had never signed a contract or formal agreement. Barbara destroyed that argument in her response brief. She submitted my 22-page timeline, all 144 bank transfer records, printed text messages in which Derek described Lily's condition, the investigator's report proving Lily was never disabled, screenshots from Vanessa's Facebook showing family vacations, and Lily's gymnastics competitions during the same periods Derek claimed she was hospitalized, and Patricia Holloway's signed affidavit describing Lily as a healthy, athletic child. The motion to dismiss was denied on June 14, 2024, by Judge Eleanor Frances Whitmore of Knox County Circuit Court. Judge Whitmore noted in her ruling that the evidence presented strongly suggests a deliberate and sustained pattern of deception designed to exploit the plaintiff's maternal love and financial generosity. The trial was set for September 23, 2024. I barely slept the night before. Christine flew in from Asheville to be with me. She held my hand over breakfast at my kitchen table, the same table where I had spread out 12 years of bank statements just 5 months earlier. "You're doing the right thing, Mom," she said. "I know," I said, "but it doesn't make it hurt less." The courtroom was on the 3rd floor of the Knox County Justice Center. It was a large room with dark wood paneling and fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead. Judge Eleanor Frances Whitmore presided from a raised bench at the front. She was a woman in her early 60s, with sharp eyes and a calm, measured voice that commanded immediate respect. She wore no jewelry except a simple watch. Derek and Vanessa sat at the defendant's table with Craig Weber. Derek wore a navy suit that looked new and expensive. He wouldn't look at me. Vanessa stared straight ahead with her jaw clenched. They had not brought Lily. Barbara called me to the stand first. I told the whole story. 12 years, every phone call, every fabricated diagnosis, every dollar. My voice did not break. I had practiced this. I had rehearsed it in Harold's chair, speaking to his photograph on the mantel until I could get through it without crying. Barbara presented the financial records. 144 individual transfers, totaling $72,000 in regular monthly payments, plus 37 additional transfers totaling $55,400. Grand total, $127,400. Every receipt was numbered and organized in a binder that Barbara handed to the judge. Then Barbara called Thomas Reeves, the private investigator. He testified about Derek and Vanessa's assets, their income, and the complete absence of any medical records for Lily related to a disability. He presented Lily's enrollment records at Windermere Academy, a private school with no special education accommodations for her because none were needed. He presented her gymnastics competition results going back 6 years. Barbara then called Patricia Holloway via video link from Orlando. Patricia described Lily as the most energetic kid on the block, a girl who rode her bike up and down Palmetto Drive every afternoon, who played soccer in the backyard, who had never, in the 7 years Patricia had lived next door, shown any sign of physical or cognitive disability. "That child can do a backflip off the diving board," Patricia said. "I've seen it with my own eyes." Craig Weber's defense was thin. He tried to argue that I had sent the money willingly, and that Derek's descriptions of Lily's condition were exaggerations born of parental anxiety, not intentional fraud. He put Derek on the stand. Derek claimed he had been overwhelmed and had overstated Lily's medical situation. Barbara cross-examined him. "Mr. Whitfield, you told your mother that your daughter had a progressive neuromuscular disorder. Is that an exaggeration or a fabrication?" Derek hesitated. "I was scared. I didn't know what was wrong with her at first." "At first? But you continued describing this condition for 12 years. Did you ever tell your mother that Lily recovered?" "I meant to." "You meant to? For 12 years?" Things got complicated. "Mr. Whitfield, your daughter has been competing in gymnastics since she was 8 years old. She won a regional medal in March of this year. Does a child with a progressive neuromuscular disorder win gymnastics medals?" Derek said nothing. "Mr. Whitfield, did you use any of the $127,400 your mother sent for medical expenses for Lily?" His attorney objected. Judge Whitmore overruled. Derek finally answered. "Some of it went to general family expenses." "General family expenses," Barbara repeated. "Like the vacation condo in Destin you purchased in 2019? Like the BMW you drive? Like the annual passes to Disney World?" Derek's face went red. Vanessa put her hand over her mouth. Barbara turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the defendant systematically fabricated a child's disability to extract $127,400 from his elderly, widowed mother over a period of 12 years. He prevented her from visiting to avoid discovery. He isolated her from her own grandchild, and when confronted, he attempted to have her declared mentally incompetent. This is not a family misunderstanding. This is fraud. This is elder abuse, and this court should treat it as such. Judge Whitmore took a 20-minute recess. When she returned, the courtroom was silent. I have reviewed the evidence presented by both parties, she began. The plaintiff has demonstrated by clear and convincing evidence that the defendants engaged in a deliberate, sustained, and calculated scheme to defraud Margaret Ann Whitfield of her financial resources by fabricating a disability for their minor child. The defendants exploited the plaintiff's maternal love, her trust, and her generosity over a period of 12 years. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. She ordered full restitution of $100,000 to $27,400, plus $38,000 in compensatory damages for emotional distress and economic harm, plus $25,000 in punitive damages. She also ordered Derek and Vanessa to pay all of Barbara's legal fees, totaling $18,700. The total judgment was $209,100. Judge Whitmore looked directly at Derek when she delivered her final remarks. Mr. Whitfield, the court is deeply troubled by your conduct. You did not merely deceive your mother. You weaponized her love for your child. You turned a grandmother's devotion into a revenue stream. The court is referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. Derek sat motionless. Vanessa was crying. Craig Weber was shuffling papers and avoiding eye contact. I walked out of that courtroom with Christine beside me. The September air was warm. I took a deep breath. My hands were steady. The aftermath was swift and thorough. Assistant District Attorney Raymond Castellano filed criminal charges against Derek Allen Whitfield on October 11, 2024. The charges included felony fraud, felony elder exploitation, and theft over $60,000. Vanessa was named as a co-conspirator, but cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges. The criminal case never went to trial. Derek's criminal defense attorney negotiated a plea deal in December 2024. Derek pleaded guilty to 1 count of felony fraud and 1 count of elder financial exploitation. He was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and was required to comply with the civil court's restitution order. But the legal consequences were only the beginning of Derek's unraveling. To pay the $209,100 judgment, Derek and Vanessa were forced to sell the vacation condo in Destin. It sold in January 2025 for $195,000. The remaining balance came from their savings. The BMW was traded in for a used Honda. The Lexus was sold outright. By February 2025, Vanessa had filed for divorce. She told Christine, who told me, that she couldn't live with the shame and that she blamed Derek for dragging her into the scheme. She said she had gone along with it at first because Derek convinced her it was temporary, that they would pay me back eventually. But she knew. She always knew. And she never said a word. The divorce was finalized in April 2025. Vanessa got primary custody of Lily. Derek was ordered to pay child support and was granted supervised visitation every other weekend. Derek's employer, a regional furniture distributor called Sun Coast Home Furnishings, terminated him in November 2024 after the criminal charges became public. His felony conviction made it difficult to find comparable work. The last I heard, from Christine, who heard it from a cousin, Derek was working at a warehouse in Kissimmee, making $16 an hour. The family fallout was equally devastating for him. Harold's sister Donna refused to speak to Derek. His cousin Robert in Nashville blocked his number. Several of Derek's childhood friends distanced themselves after the story circulated. Even Vanessa's parents, who had been close with Derek for years, cut off contact. In March 2025, I saw Derek one final time. I was grocery shopping at the Kroger on Kingston Pike. I was in the produce section, picking out apples, when I looked up and saw him standing at the end of the aisle. He looked different, thinner. His clothes were wrinkled. He had dark circles under his eyes. He stared at me. I stared back. "Mom," he said. I didn't respond right away. I placed an apple in my bag, set the bag in my cart, and then looked at him. "You took 12 years from me, Derek. 12 years of birthdays, holidays, and moments with my granddaughter. 12 years of eating rice and beans so I could send you money for a lie. You tried to have me declared incompetent when I found out. You told the family I had dementia." He opened his mouth to speak. "I'm not finished," I said. "I don't hate you. Hating you would require energy I don't have left to waste, but I want you to understand something. You didn't just steal money. You stole my trust in my own child. You stole the relationship I could have had with Lily, and you stole the peace I should have had in my final years." He stood there, his eyes wet, his hands hanging at his sides. I pushed my cart past him and walked to the checkout line. I felt nothing. Not triumph, not pity, just quiet certainty that justice had been served. The money came in installments. By June 2025, I had received the full $209,100 ordered by the court. I sat with Barbara Hendricks in her office and signed the final receipt. She shook my hand and said, "Margaret, you are one of the strongest people I've ever represented." The first thing I did was fix my kitchen faucet. It sounds small, but for 2 years, I had listened to that drip, drip, drip every night and told myself I couldn't afford to fix it. The plumber came on a Tuesday and had it fixed in 40 minutes. I stood at the sink afterward and ran the water just to hear it flow cleanly. No drip, no leak. It was such a tiny thing, but it felt monumental. I got my teeth fixed, 3 crowns and a deep cleaning that I had postponed for 4 years. Dr. Linda Chen, my dentist, looked at my records and said, "Margaret, you should have come in years ago, but we'll get you sorted out." She did. I donated $10,000 to the Knoxville Senior Citizens Legal Aid Fund, an organization that helps elderly people who have been financially exploited by family members. I met with their director, a kind woman named Angela Morales, and told her my story. She asked if I would be willing to speak at their annual fundraiser. I said yes. I stood in front of 200 people in October 2025 and told them what happened to me. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then they stood and clapped. I didn't want applause. I wanted other people to know that it's never too late to fight back. I set aside $25,000 in a college fund for each of Christine's 2 boys, Nathan and Elijah. Christine cried when I told her, "Mom, you don't have to do that." "I want to," I said. "Your father would have wanted it." I booked a trip. Harold and I had always talked about visiting Charleston, South Carolina. He wanted to see the historic district and eat shrimp and grits at a restaurant by the waterfront. We never went. Life always got in the way. In November 2025, Christine and I drove to Charleston together. We spent 4 days walking along the Battery, touring old homes, eating shrimp and grits at a little place called Hank's Seafood on Church Street. I brought Harold's favorite cap with me and set it on the chair next to mine at dinner. Christine laughed and then cried. We both did. I had my house painted for the first time in 11 years. A fresh coat of soft blue with white trim. The painters finished on a Friday, and my neighbor, Eleanor Davis, came over and stood on the sidewalk with me, looking at it. "Margaret, it looks brand new." "It feels brand new," I said. I started attending a weekly watercolor class at the community center. I am not a good painter. My trees look like broccoli and my skies are always slightly crooked. But the instructor, a young woman named Samantha, told me that art isn't about perfection. It's about presence. I liked that. My health improved. My blood pressure came down. My doctor, James Thurman, looked at my numbers at my January 2026 checkup and raised his eyebrows. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I stopped carrying other people's lies," I told him. He smiled. "That'll do it." I reconnected with Lily. This was the hardest and most beautiful part. After the divorce, Vanessa reached out to Christine and said she wanted Lily to know her grandmother. It took time. There were phone calls first, awkward and careful, then video calls. Lily was 17 by then, tall and athletic, with Harold's stubborn chin and Derek's brown eyes. She was cautious at first. She had been told I didn't want to visit, that I was too busy, that I wasn't interested. That's not true, sweetheart, I told her on our first video call. I tried to visit every year. I was told I couldn't. We met in person in March 2026. Christine drove me to Asheville, and Vanessa brought Lily up from Orlando. We met at Christine's house. When Lily walked through the door, she looked at me and said, "You're shorter than I thought you'd be." I laughed. I laughed until tears ran down my face. And then I hugged her, and she hugged me back. And for the first time in years, I felt like the world had righted itself, even if only a little. I gave Lily the quilt, the one I had brought to Orlando that day, the one that